Welcome to Understanding the Self, and this is for the lesson one, how we people perceive and understand ourselves. It comes from a different way and different values, and one of these values are it became from this one, which is part one, values of perspectives. Okay, learning outcomes. We're going to discuss the different representation and conceptualization of self from various disciplinal rather perspective, compare and contrast how the self has been represented across different disciplines and perspective. We should also examine the different influences. What are the factors influence us to shape our behavior, shape our self, and demonstrate the critical and the reflective thought in analyzing the development of oneself and identity by developing a theory of the self. These are the factors that we need to learn for this lesson. Okay, for the lesson number one, as I mentioned earlier, understanding the self knowledge comes from different perspective. Okay, and one of this is from the perspective of philosophy. Okay, questions centered on the universe and what possible role man may play in it. Okay, Greek philosophers in Miletus chose to seek natural explanation to events and phenomena around him instead of seeking for natural explanation from the gods as what was passed down through the generations. Meaning to say, if before people are habituated by seeking the answer through gods, okay, but this is a different view, different approach. They're going to seek the values of a person or the self of a person from different perspective, from a perspective of philosophy. Okay, their study to change the led them to idea of permanence. With this time frame, they had an idea already for such thing. They have different own belief, but those beliefs are not yet permanent, and that's why they come up with this idea of permanence. One of the greatest philosophers is Socrates. First, Socrates is the father of Western philosophy. He is also the mentor of Plato, and Plato is the mentor of Aristotle. To become powerful, one must do it words. Okay, at that time, recent Greek time, teachers are not called to be a teacher. They called to be a sophist. That's how they called the teacher was. And he is known for Socratic method. And we're going to explain what Socratic method means on the later to the next slide rather. Also for this one, Plato believed in innate reasoning, meaning to say that people are born to have different kind of reasoning. Okay, so it cannot be passed through the moral reason to you by the other person, but you yourself has your own innate or inborn reasoning. And he believes that we learn through our experiences. I'm going to elaborate that one in the next slides. Okay, he said that I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. All right. For that one, that is an example of Socratic method. What Socratic method do is to ask and ask and ask and ask people, what is the answer? Why you answer like that? Why and so on and so on and something. All right. In that oracle named Socrates, the wisest of all men. Okay. Even though that Socrates didn't teach anything, in Oracle of Delphi, in one place in Greek, says that he's the most wisest of all men. Okay, because he teaches people to think. He refused being wisest, according to him, because he didn't teach anything, and he keeps on refusing that one. He doesn't want to be called as the wisest. People were ignorant of what knowledge is most important. Okay. Now, Plato believed that knowledge is the most important for you not to become an ignorant. If you have that kind of knowledge, you will be knowledgeable enough and you will not be called for as ignorant. Real understanding, as I mentioned earlier, comes from within the person or innate reasoning. He believes on that. That's why he keeps on asking people. Okay, and the answer must must come to that person as well. The aim of Socratic method is to make people think, seek and ask again and again. Some may be angered and frustrated because they might do not know the answer of that question. But what is important is for them to realize that they do not know everything. Okay, we must accept to ourselves that there's a lot of things that we did not know yet. Okay, and by that acceptance of ignorance, we people needs to seek knowledge and continue to search for the answer of it. And the next one is Plato. Plato is known for Plato is he has a nickname of Plato because of his wide physic body. Okay, and that's what Plato means. Plato left for Athens for 12 years after the death of Socrates. All right, he believes that because that he is Socrates the mentor of Plato, he do really needs to seek something. Okay? Natouch siya ng ganung paniniwala ni Socrates. And he believes in theory of forms, Plato's dualism, the realm of forms, and innate knowledge. And we have now the theory of forms. What are these theory of forms? Before we move on that one, what are these forms? Forms are the things that that we see. Okay? This is the reality. Okay? When we say the realm of shadow, these are what we perceive. Okay? Halimbawa, nakikita natin ang isang bagay but we do not know the meaning of that. That's the realm of shadow. Realm of forms, this is the permanent one because this is the fact. Okay? This is the one that can give us the correct information. Alright? For shadows, that's what we only perceive. Halimbawa, sometimes in our daily lives, we believe on something. Okay? That is not, since that other people might say this and that and those, we constantly believe on that thing. But however, according to Plato, the one must be constant. Okay, and that constant means the theory of forms. All right, the forms are unchanging and therefore permanent. Okay, because that is the fact. The forms are unmoving and indivisible. Okay, so if you know behind the shadow, if you look at it on your daily life na hindi ka dapat maniniwala sa sinasabi ng iba, and then, or on what you perceive by through senses, okay, you should also have to look what's behind of it. Okay, and those behind of it are the theory of forms or the realm of forms. Alright? The realm of shadow this is only changing, naiiba-iba. Okay? When we say naiiba-iba, it might say na ibang paniniwala na sinabi ni kaibigan mo, and then iba din ang paniniwala na sinabi ng isang tao. Okay? That's a realm of shadow. Meaning to say, those are only shadow, and you should look the realm of forms. Why did they come up on that thing? Okay? Bakit sila nag-come up doon, and then that's a form because it is not changeable. It's the truth behind, and also it is the fact, as I am saying earlier. This one, to give you a meaning, the realm of forms is composed of changing, sensible things which are lesser entities and therefore imperfect and flawed. And that's what I am saying earlier, that realm of shadows are the that's what we sense. Okay, so if we see something, is it really the truth? Okay, if we see something, yun ba talaga yun? If someone behaves this kind of act, yun na ba talaga yun? Or there is a story behind of that, and that story is the realm of forms. It is composed of eternal things, and those things are permanent and perfect. Okay, if we look at it sa kung ano ba talaga yung behind nun. Okay? The reason of that is the fact, and that is the realm of forms. And according to Plato, people are driven by reason, spirited, and appetites. What is this all about? Reason are rational. When we say rational, that's the correct one. And it's the motivation are for goodness and truth. Okay? So if we think na people needs to think in a way that is rational, in a positive, in a correct manner. Okay, that's the one of the component of the soul. And you also said that people are driven by non-rational. When we say non-rational, it's not irrational nor rational. It is non-rational. These are people are driven by religiousness. Okay, when we say religion, you cannot say that you're wrong, your belief is wrong because you believe in this kind of God. All right, that's non-rational. And religion cannot define good and bad. That's why it is non-rational, as I'm saying earlier. Okay? And we also have appetites. These appetites are irrational and lean towards the desire and pleasures of the body. Meaning to say, for these appetites, these are the things that is irrational beliefs. It might be irrational beliefs, and these are irrational things or desires and can only give us pleasure in what kind of way, in different kind of way, as long as it can sustain our pleasurable concepts to our mind and body, and that's what we call appetites. All right. And for Plato's believe that people are intrinsically good. Sometimes, however, judgment are made in ignorance, and Plato equate ignorance with evil. Okay, we are all born with an innate goodness to ourselves, but sometimes our judgment to a certain people, to a certain event, that thing gives us an ignorance with an evil, because for him, if you do not know something, you're ignorant, and that's what you cause an evilness. Okay, kung hindi mo alam ang isang bagay, makakagawa ka ng hindi maganda. Okay, if you know the true good, or a way na tama yung bagay na yun, it can eliminate that evilness. As long as you got that kind of information, you have the bodily information of the things that you need to know, okay, malalesen natin yung evilness natin sa paggawa ng masama. With this kind of thing, allegory of cave, we discussed that one earlier, okay? And there is a prisoner. Sa loob ng prisoner na yon, nakikita lang nila, there's a fire outside the cave, and then itong prisoner na to in sa kuweba, what they can only see is the shadow, okay? They see birds, but they do not know the color of the birds. They see trees, but they cannot able to see what is the color of trees. What they can only see is the form. There's one instant that one of the prisoner escaped to that cave. You see that the sun gave a light. Okay, this is that this flower is has a color, trees has a color, and other things that he needs to see outside of the cave. When he gets back to the cave, sinabi niya na hindi ito yung mga nakikita natin. Hindi ito talaga nakikita natin. And since that, these people that inside of the cave has no experience to escape to that cave, hindi sila naniwala dun sa prisoner na yon. And that cave it symbolizes as ignorance. Okay? If we keep on ourselves na ang nakikita natin ay nandoon na, if we do not escape dun sa reality, hindi natin makikita kung ano ba talaga yung reality. That's how we identify this allegory of cave. And one of the lesson of the allegory of the cave. Okay, we need to understand what's outside of that cave. Okay, and because that cave symbolizes an ignorance. How are we going to apply this in every day of our lives? Okay, face value can only deceive us. Information can deceive us, but if we see something behind that one, that is the true meaning of it. Okay, because sometimes people are nabubulag sa kung ano yung nakikita nila. Kung ano ang nakita nila, dapat you should also look what's behind of that. If somebody tells you na ganito ang ugali niya and ganyan ang ugali niya, that's only a shadow. Alright? But if we look at on the bigger picture, if we see something na umalis tayo dun sa cave na yon, which is symbolizes ignorance, makikita natin talaga kung ano ang forms na yon or the reality. Okay? We should not always believe sa mga sinasabi ng iba. We should look for what's the meaning behind of that one. That's how Plato identify the forms, the shadow, and the allegory of the cave. For Plato to know, for Plato is to be. Okay? What does that mean? Kung kailangan malaman natin yung mga bagay behind of that. Love is the force that paves the way for all beings to ascend to a higher stage of self-realization and perfection. Plato's love begins with that feeling of experience that there is something lacking. Alright? Love is the force. Para sa kanya ay love ay ito yung if we love something that what we are doing, we became better of it. Okay? That's how we see realization or self-realization and perfection. We need to love something para makita natin kung ano yung behind of that love. And once na minamahal natin ang isang bagay, mas nakaka-achieve tayo ng kabutihan. Mas nakikita natin yung behind of that one. To love is the highest, is to become the best. As I mentioned earlier, kung mas mamahalin mo ang isang bagay, mas makikita mo yung behind of that, mas magiging maayos ka, mas magiging productive ka, mas magiging maalam ka dun sa certain way na yon. Next is the St. Augustine of Hippo. Hippo is, Plato and other Greek philosophers see man as a basically good and becomes evil through ignorance of what is good. Okay, so for this one, Christianity, on the other hand, sees man as sinners who reject, go against a loving of God's commands. Ibig sabihin, for St. Augustine of Hippo, he believes that if you know Christianity, if you know God, okay, that is the highest virtue of a person. Okay, we need to know God kasi nga, nagiging masama lang tayo. It's because of we don't believe to God. Okay? Hindi tayo naniniwala sa Diyos. And knowing God and is mga sinasabi, maaalis tayo sa mga ignorance na yon. Okay? Mawawala yung mga evilness na yon. Thus, Christian philosophy became so powerful that the church ordered Plato's Academy of Athens closed. Okay? Kasi, for that, one, that time, mas nagisikat ang Christianity. Okay? Ang mga church. Kasi nga, na ipapalaganap kung if this is what the Bible says, if this is what the God says, that is the truth. Okay? That is the true reason and logic. Okay? And he wanted to know about moral evil and why it existed in people. Okay? St. Augustine also interested to look for that one. Okay? Bakit nag-exist ang kasamaan sa isang tao? It's because it might be hindi niya nakikilala ang Diyos. Okay? His personal desire for sensual pleasure and questions about all the suffering in the world. Okay? Kaya may mga problem ang isang tao. It's because they do not know God. They do not know what is true sense why they exist. Because this era is for searching for meanings. Okay? They wanted to know and understand the self. We have two realms. One of the realms, God is the source of reality and truth. If you know God, that's the reality. If you know God already and you apply it to yourself, you practice that one, that is the reality and the truth. Okay? Mabuti ka kung ang nagbibigay na ng tamang katotohanan ay ang Diyos, no other than that, according to St. Augustine. According to him, without God as the source of all the truth, man could never understand eternal truths. Kung hindi mo malalaman ang katotohanan, okay, hindi mo maiintindihan, hindi ka makaka-achieve ng panghabay buhay na katotohanan. And one of that katotohanan is through the source of God. Second is the sinful of a man. Okay? And according to him, nakakagawa tayo ng mali. It's because we have free will. We do not have a separation what is good and bad. And for us to identify the good and bad, we should know God. He says also the role of love. Love of physical objects leads to the sin of greed. Halimbawa, you love money. If you say you love money, naging madamat ka na. If too much love for that money is naging matamo tayo, i-share to sa iba. So that's why, if you too much love that kind of physical objects, it can cause you conflict. Okay? That conflictness is the one that is agreed. That conflict of loving something or an object can cause you greed. Halimbawa, mahal ko ang isang ballpen, and then what I'm going to do is to collect them and collect. Okay? And magiging madamat ako because I love that kind of pen. And I don't want to share it to anybody. Love for other people is not lasting, and excessive love for them is the sin of jealousy. When we say that one, hindi nag-exist ang love mo sa isang tao o kinapanghabang buhay, and that excessive love can cause jealousy. When we say jealousy, it might be, but it talks about that sa sobrang mahal natin sa isang tao, ayaw natin lapitan siya ng iba pang tao. And that kind of loving to the person can cause conflict, which is a jealousy. Naging seloso tayo. Third, love for the self leads to the sin of pride. Meaning to say, if you're going to impose to yourself that you're good with this, you're good with that kind of thing, okay? It can cause a conflict, which is the pride. Okay? Too much loving yourself can cause you pride because you're going to provide or tell to anybody that I'm good at this, I'm good at that. Alright? I'm better than you. Okay? Naging mayabang tayo. And also, number 4, love for God is the supreme virtue, and only through loving God can man find real happiness. As I'm saying earlier, if you know God, that's the happiest. Okay? That's the happiness. Because of the only sources of truth is through God. Now, let's move for René Descartes. He's the father of philosophy, modern philosophy rather. He's known for Cartesian plane, and he believes in an innate behavior. And what are these factors? For René Descartes, we have intuitions, ability to apprehend direction on certain truths. Halimbawa, when somebody instructed you to do such thing, that's an intuition. Meaning to say, yun yung sinabi sa'yo, you have an idea already. Okay? But deduction is a power to discover what is known by progressing in an orderly way for what is already known. Truths are arrived by using step-by-step process. Ibig sabihin, deduction is that when somebody says that UTS is a boring na subject, and then somebody says that one to you, that's an intuition. And then, as it goes along, ay nagugustuhan mo ang isang bagay na iyon, that's a deduction. Ay, hindi naman pala totoo na boring ang UTS because it talks about philosophy. Okay? And naging analytical tayo by using this step-by-step process. Okay? Because for that one, nai-apply dito yung Cartesian method niya na when we plot this kind of, when somebody instructed you to plot X and Y axis, plinat mo yung dot na yon, and then you found that while plotting that kind of dots, that kind of axis, there's something wrong. And that is the deduction. Mapapansin mo siguro na, ay, mali pala yung pag-plot ko ng line dun sa Cartesian plane. Okay, so x and y axis, what you're going to do is to erase that kind of line and then buburahin mo and then itatama mo. Okay? So that's how our self came from. Hindi lang basta tayo nasasabihan ninyo man na mali yan, masama yan. But along the way, as we go older, nakikita natin na naisasala natin na hindi lang pala yun. Okay? Pag sinabi na ganito ay masama, masama nga ba talaga yun? We deduct something. Okay? Because we are as we grow older, we discovering things. That's why he is known for I think, therefore I am, or the cogito ego sum. He believes that to doubt is to think. Okay? If you're if you apply it that tama nga ba talaga to? And then mapapaisip ka. Okay? I think, therefore I am. Nag-isip ako, kaya ako nalaman. Kaya ako natutunan ang isang bagay. Okay, that is what René Descartes is known for that quote. Cogito ergo sum. He believes that to doubt is to think, as I mentioned earlier. The body, according to, is like a machine that is controlled by will and aided by the mind. Alright? Next will be John Locke. Okay? It contradicts Descartes. Okay, it contradicts Descartes rather. He believed in posteriori, sensation wherein objects are experienced through the senses. We learn certain facts through our senses. Okay? Kung sinasabi dito ng kanina ni Descartes is through deduction, no, it's not. We learn through our experiences. And because he believes in posteriori. Posteriori is an object. Okay? Halimbawa, sinabihan ka na mainit ang kape, huwag mong hawakan. Mainit ang baso kasi may mainit yan na tubig. And then, that baso is a kind of posteriori or nagsiserve na kung saan nagbibigay sa'yo ng information na huwag mong hawakan. Kasi nga, mainit siya. Pag hinawakan mo yan, mapapaso ka. Okay, that's through senses. And na-apply niyo yung ganong bagay. Reflection by which the mind looks at the object that were experienced to discover relation that may exist between them. Okay? He is known for the blank slate or the tabula rasa. Nothing exists in the mind that was not first in the senses. With this kind of blank slate, para siyang papel, we are all blank slate. Okay? John Locke believes on that one. Kapag itong blank slate na to, kapag itong blankong papel na to ay pinatungan natin ng isang tuldok, that is an experience. And as we live, there's a lot of dots dun na malalagay natin dun sa papel. And that dots serve as an experience. Okay? There is no innate ideas kasi nga, according to John Locke, he believes that learning is experience. Walang innate ideas kasi hindi naman natin malalaman kung hindi natin siya ma-experience. Okay? When the senses have experienced are simple ideas which are the raw materials from which knowledge begins. Okay? Halimbawa nito ay dun nga sa kape, sa mainit at baso na may mainit na tubig, hindi natin malalaman na mainit yun kung hindi natin siya masesense, hindi natin siya mahahawakan. Okay? Kailangan natin ng senses na yun para malaman if what is the true meaning of it. Okay? To understand that kind of thing. Hindi pwede na sinabi lang sa'yo na mainit yan if you do not know the sense of mainit. Okay? If you did not feel, if you do not have an experience to feel what is mainit. Alright? Moral good depends on conformity or non-conformity. He's known for that one as well. When we say moral good depends on conformity or non-conformity, when we say conform, lahat sumasang-ayon. Non-conform is hindi ka sumasang-ayon. Halimbawa, kapag nasa loob ka ng klase, ang lahat ay agree doon sa sinasabi, that's conformity. Okay? Malalaman na natin kung masama ang isang bagay or mabuti ang isang bagay kapag lahat gumagawa. And then, kapag may isa na hindi gumagawa dun sa bagay na yon, ibig sabihin, siya yung mali. siya yung bad or that is not a moral goodness. Kasi hindi lahat i-practice yung bagay na yon. Morality has to do with choosing the willing, the good. Meaning to say, it depends on the person if he will choose the, if you want to be good or bad. Okay? If he will conform or not. And next, there's a three laws according to him. Law of opinion, where actions that are praiseworthy are called virtues and those that are not are called vice. When we say that, kapag nag-agree tayo sa isang bagay, sa law of, or sa isang opinion, tinatawag yun na virtue. Ibig sabihin, we are agreeing on that. Kapag hindi naman tayo nag-agree, it's what we call vice. Number 2 is the civil law, where right action are enforced by people in authority. Meaning to say, para masabi natin na moral good, kanina meron tayong law of opinion, it's about agreeing, we agree to one personal view or virtues. Then number 2 is civil law. When we say that, malalaman natin kung moral good ba ang isang bagay by adhering sa mga authority. What are these authorities such as court? Ano ba sinabi ng court? Ano ba sinabi ng korte? Ano ba sinabi ng police? Or yung mga nakakataas sa atin? And number 3, last line, for the number 3, which is divine law. Okay? Malalaman natin kung tama ang isang bagay aside from the virtue, aside from the court, which the third one is divine law. Okay, set by God on the actions of man. This is deemed to be true law for human behavior. The divine law is eternally true and the one law that man should always follow. So, ito lang dapat natin sinusunod. If we believe in that something, meaning to say, that gives us a moral good. Okay, it's all about divine gods. Next would be David Hume. After reading the philosophy of luck, he never again entertained any belief in religion. Okay, so meaning to say, he might not agree with that one. He also discovered that limitation of a mind and this optimism turned into skepticism. Okay, kung yung pagiging optimist natin because of that divine law, civil law, and so on, naging malabo na or mahirap na siyang paniwalaan. Okay, yung mga conformity, senses, and so on, sinabi kanina ni John Locke. Okay? That's why I concluded with two perception. Without impression, there will be no formation of ideas. Meaning to say, halimbawa, pumunta ka, sasabi niya, huwag kang pupunta dyan kasi maraming bagay na yan. Hindi maganda yung bagay na yan. That's an impression. Okay? You formulate already an ideas na, nga hindi ako pupunta doon kasi hindi nga pala okay doon sa isang lugar na yun. And then, we're going to discuss earlier the impression and the counterpart of this. Okay? His self is nothing else but a bundle of impression. Alright? So, meaning to say, ourselves is a bundle of impression. It's a bundle of ideas from what other instructed to us. So, what is the self? For him, we have impression and we have ideas. This impression, by the way, balikan natin. This impression are the things na ibibigay natin. Okay, mas nakikita natin. For that impression, it talks about what we see, what we sense on that reality. Okay? And that bodily impression or bundle of impression is now where we call the ideas. Halimbawa, may sinabi sa'yo ng isang tao and then sabi niya, yung tao na yan masama ang ugali niya. And then for that one, nakipagkita ka dun sa tao and then you sense everything. Okay, you have that information already. You sense everything, nakipag-usap ka, nakipagkamay ka, and so on and so on. Those are sensation because you perceive something, you sense something rather, okay? And after nun, this everything or recollection of this impression is called ideas. Ay, may idea na ako na halimbawa, ganito pala si taong ganito. Nagkakaroon tayo ng ideas because of impression. Because this is what our senses na nakuha. Okay? Na na-project doon sa ganung bagay. So what is the self? A bundle of collection of different perceptions which succeed each other with an inconceivable rapidity and are in a perpetual flux and movement. So meaning to say, there's nothing else but a bundle of impression. It's simply a bundle of collection of different perception. All right, which men simply want to believe that there is unified, okay, coherent self, a solar mind. In reality, what one thinks is unified self. Okay? Hindi mo siya pwedeng, it's a combination of all experiences. Hindi mo siya pwedeng sabihin na naniniwala ka dun sa isang bagay na it's because of this and that. Okay? Naniniwala ka dun sa isang bagay na yun because ito yung sinabi ng ibang tao. Okay? You have to sense that kind of thing. Okay? And by the use of senses, people formulate an ideas. He also said there is no permanent or unchanging self, meaning to say, if we people perceive something, it's not yet permanent. Okay? It may be na it's just a collection of ideas, okay? But nakakita pa rin tayo ng pagbabago doon. Okay? Next would be Immanuel Kant. He argued that mind is passive and receiver, but rather participates in knowing the object and its experience. A self must exist according to Kant, or there could be no memory or knowledge. So, hindi lang basta siya about sensing. Okay, hindi lang siya about passive. Kung ito yung nakita mo, ito na yun. Okay? For Immanuel Kant, ang sasabi niya na we people organize things also. Okay? So, sort out din natin yan. Hindi lang tayo basta kung ano ang nakita natin, passive lang tayo. Passive lang yun. Our mind is just passive. We also uses our mind to formulate a new knowledge. And he coined the transcendent of a perception. Okay? And for that one, sinasabi din na we use our knowledge to formulate something. Okay? To use things. Now, Sigmund Freud, he contributed a big impact in psychology, and he treated people with hysteria using psychoanalysis. When we say that, because people back then, when we say hysteria, is, paano ba nagsimula ang psychology? Okay? It's because of yung dumami ang mga tao nagkaroon ng hysteria, and then sabi ni Freud, ginagawa niya dyan yung parang yung psychoanalysis, ina-apply niya. Parang pinapagsalita niya yung tao na pinagsasalita, and then ina-analyze niya yung dream. Okay? Free association is the one that we form it. Halimbawa, kung may nararamdaman ng isang tao and suffering from hysteria, ang gagawin niya pagsasalitain for him to be able to get something to that person, to treat that person using free association. And he is known also for analyzing dream. Okay? If nakakita ka ng tree, maaring that tree symbolizes a penis. Okay? He is a father of modern psychology, and he is known for fixation. Okay? To the next lesson, sasabihin natin kung ano yung fixation na yun. Okay? Kung paano nga ba tayo nagko-cope sa isang bagay. kung paano tayo na-fixated sa isang bagay. And it's known for id, ego, and superego. Id are the unconscious. We have conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. For this, id, these are unconscious. What are these? These are sex, aggression. Okay? Ito yung mga irrational impulse natin and operates unconscious level. Halimbawa would be for id. Sasabi ni id mo na um, okay, gusto masturbation, okay, sex. These are the example of id. Okay? Lagi natin tatandaan, id is pleasure. Ano ba yung nagbibigay sa atin ng saya, ng sarap? That is the id. Okay? If we smoke cigarette, okay, that's an id. Okay? Because we wanted our mouth to be fixated, to have pleasure. Next is superego. So after an id, there is a superego, which is in the level of preconscious. With that preconscious, sabi dito, it's a moral. Okay? So malaking part dito itong id because our unconscious mind has pleasure. Si superego, ito yung gives ng morality kung tama pa ba yung bagay na yan or hindi na. And then the one who decides, simple in layman's term, is the ego. Dinadala natin yung body of information na yon to our conscious level. And if you have questions to further discuss this, you may ask me during synchronous and asynchronous class. And ano nga ba nagdadrive sa isang tao? Okay? This is eros. Okay? When we say eros, it is a survival. Okay? Or what we call libido. Okay? Survival, example would be thirst. Okay? Nagdadrive tayo, eros means life. Okay? Nag-survive tayo sa isang bagay. It's because of we wanted this survival. Okay? And what are the survival factors? Thirst, hunger, sex. These are eros. These things gives life to us to survive. And we have thanatos. Thanatos means death. Okay? If we are controlled by aggression or bad negative things, that's what we call thanatos or aggressiveness. Okay? Eros is life and thanatos would be death. Okay? It's either that you wanted Eros for you to survive, or you wanted to end your life by this Thanatos. It's either magpupush through ka ba? You wanted to continue your life for you to survive, or you wanted to end that one through Thanatos or through death. Man that lives is life balancing the forces of life and death. Okay? Nabubuhay tayo kasi we wanted to balance between survival and the death. Next will be Gilbert Ryle. Okay? He contradict the idea of Cartesian dualism. Okay? So, sino yung Cartesian dualism? We discussed that one earlier. It's Descartes. Okay? Nasasabi ni Descartes doon na intuition, deduction, right? And mind can influence a physical material body. Okay? He theorized the two types of knowledge, the knowing that and knowing how. For Ryle, looking for and trying to understand a self as it really exists is like visiting our friend's university and looking for the university. Halimbawa, when somebody instruct you na punta ka sa registrar, okay? Kunin mo yung ganito, kunin mo yung ganyan. Okay? Doon mo makikita yung ganito. We should ask, or not should ask, but there's something that, paano yun? Paano ko pupunta ng registrar? Paano papunta doon? Paano puntang Kabsup? After ng Kabsup, ano mangyayari? Pag nandoon na ako sa loob, what's inside? Okay? Paano mag-enroll? Knowing how, makikita natin na kailangan natin ng pre-registration. Okay? Para daw yung, na bibisita mo ang kaibigan mo sa isang university. And habang nandoon ka sa university, okay, na inahanap mo or may nakikita ka, and then ina-explore mo kung ano pa inside of that university for you to be able to find your friend. How I'm going to find my friend? It might be look for the section of it. Paano ko magagawa yun? Maybe by asking guard, by asking registrar, and so on. Next, Patricia and Paul Churchland. Okay? For this Patricia and Paul Churchland, they coined the word neurophilosophy. Okay? And claims that man's brain is responsible for identity known of the self. Hindi lang daw through experience, through innate behavior, through dualism, through allegory of the cave, but it's because of people behave, or ourselves behave because of the biochemicals of our body. Example would be this: pag in MRI ka or CT scan, makikita sa'yo if you are depressed, the color of your mind will, this is only an example, na magiging red ba yan, magiging gray ba yan, and what this color means. Kapag pinakain kita ng chocolate, ay mag-iiba before and after ng mood mo. That's why we have CT scan. It's for us to identify this kind of thing na kaya tayo nagbe-behave, kaya tayo nagagalit. It's because of not only about the physical or how we understand things around us. It's also because of the biochemical that we have on our mind or in our body. Next would be Merleau-Ponty. With this sense, consciousness, the world, and the human body are all interconnected as they mutually perceive the world. Man cannot separate himself from his perception of the world. Okay, possible that one object may be perceived from various perspectives. Okay, in regards to that, sinasabi niya lang na hindi daw natin masaseparate ang our body to reality. Okay? Laging interconnected ang body natin at ang nangyayari dito sa mundo. Because it's kung ano yung nakikita natin, yun din yung in-act natin. Okay? Kung ano yung nakikita natin, konektado doon yung katawan natin. Yun lang yung gustong sabihin ni Merleau-Ponty. Okay, and we have an activity. You need to answer the questions to ponder. Why do philosophers differ in their explanation of self? Bakit ba iba-iba sila ng ibig sabihin kung ano nga ba ang self? How has the concept so-called self changed over the centuries when human nature remained basically the same? Bakit, kung titingnan sabi nung una ni Socrates ay information daw to. It's all about ignorance. Okay? It's all about innate behavior. Kung pare-parehas lang naman ang tao, bakit kinakailangan na magbago ang concept ng pagtingin natin sa sarili over the century past? Okay? These are the activity that you need to answer on the module that you have. And I hope you learned something for this day, and that is the end of lesson 1.